Alright, the time has finally arrived where we're going to start Baxter's Moments in Step 3. Thank you to everybody who gave me a recommendation on what order to do these moments in. The consensus is just go left to right, don't do any of these weird number generator nonsense thingies, and just enjoy the ride. So that's what I'm going to do, and then at some point in amongst these, maybe even at the end, I might do the boating? I think that's the only other one that Baxter shows up in for Cove side of things, so there you go. Let's do some sightseeing. You were perched on the couch in your living room doing nothing in particular. It was a quintessential summer afternoon. The weather was warm and the mood was lazy. So far, it had shaped up to be a pleasant day, if somewhat uneventful. No plans and no obligations beyond a few usual chores. Liz had already flitted off, enjoying herself. She'd left in the morning carrying a mysteriously heavy bag. You hadn't bothered asking her what she was doing or why it needed a sack that clattered when it moved. She probably wouldn't be home till late. Your moms both had the day off, and like you, had been using their freedom to do nothing of import. The group of you finished cleaning up from your shared lunch, and Mom struck up a conversation.
So?
Well, what's next? Your mind was blank. You let the question hang, assuming Ma would be the one to reply, and glanced down at your phone out of habit. And right then, the screen lit up, presenting you with a potential idea. A text notification had come in. Baxter's name displayed itself. He sent more messages after the first. You unlocked your phone to see it all. Hello and good afternoon.
Hello and good afternoon. I am intending to go sightseeing and would love it if you could join me. You are quite welcome to invite anyone else along as well.
Okay. Your phone buzzed one more time with an additional note.
Sincerely, your friend Baxter.
Ah, you're one of those people that formats text like an email. You would be, wouldn't you? You snorted at the screen. His texting style read more like a formal letter written with a quill pen than a text. Yeah, that too. Oh. Ma, don't get that look in your eye.
Did your friends text you?
Ma smiled at you with a raised eyebrow. Gluing your face to a phone for so long must have been a big tip-off. You nodded before explaining. I think Baxter wants to go sightseeing.
Wow, perfect timing. Yes, that's nice. Baxter Ward seems like a lovely young man.
Not bad.
He's a step up or two from the Donnells, that's for sure.
Neither Mom nor Ma had spent a lot of time around Baxter as far as you were aware. They'd met early in the summer, something unavoidable on the street, and had a few encounters since.
I wonder where he's from.
Ma didn't look to you for an answer, or her wife. She couldn't add to that topic and assumed no one else in the room knew either. It was a wonderment for the universe alone. Mom still pressed her lips together and thought.
No clue. But what I'm curious about is, what is he studying in college? He's on a break from school, isn't he?
Well...
Yes, he did mention he was an on and off semester, but not more than that.
Once the curiosity train left the station, there was no stopping it. The two traded questions back and forth, whispering with growing steam. There was someone on their street who was a stranger, a situation that hadn't occurred in a decade.
What do you think his family is like? He's here all by himself.
Again, none of you could enlighten the others. You had scarcely spent more time with Baxter than your parents, and you realized he hadn't been forthcoming with basic details. I wonder if you learned any of this in any of the other moments, and if you could, like, be forthcoming with us and have a conversation. That would be interesting. 17-year-old me. What am I kidding? 32-year-old me is also like, he's so mysterious. I know who I am. It was exciting to know there was so much more to him to figure out. You refocused on your phone and the formal message that had yet to get a reply. I tend to mirror texts. Like, the style that I receive a text in, I typically will then reply in a similar fashion, although with way more emojis. That's my only style when texting, is like too much emojis. But otherwise, I try to match vibes. Feeling inspired by his stiff texting tone, you couldn't resist having a little fun. Perfect. This is everything I wanted, Molly. Good tidings, Sir Baxter. Of course I would be delighted to join you this fine day. I have finished my luncheon, so we'll venture forth to your dwellings. You hit send, aware that the message wasn't exactly a high society Victorian letter. It ended up more medieval fantasy scroll, but he'd probably get the joke. It didn't take long at all for Baxter to continue the conversation. Yes, he played into it. Wonderful.
Brave knight Molly, that is heartening. I shall see you post-haste. My highest regards.
Yeah, he got it. You smiled and turned to your moms. They had moved on to wondering about if Baxter had a part-time job. Probably not, both of them were concluding. Hey, moms, I have to get going to Baxter's. That's okay, right?
Have fun, kiddo. Yes, do that.
Ma's grin was as sweet as honey being used in a trap. You could see the ulterior motive from a mile away.
Please?
And if you happen to find out anything about our new neighbor, maybe think of telling your poor moms when you get back?
Lonnie.
Despite everything, Mom appeared amused at her wife's blatant attempt at info digging.
Well, I'd be interested to hear it too, if Baxter doesn't mind his mystification being cleared up.
You're way too nosy. What would I do in this situation? They are hilarious. You know what? I'm just gonna tease them. You two are so nosy. It wouldn't be right for your moms any other way, even if it did mean trouble sometimes.
But it is a shame he hasn't actually moved into the neighborhood. I could invite him over and get to know him better myself. Sadly, that's not the case.
It's a shame.
He is a young man trying to enjoy his vacation. He should be out and about, not spending his limited time entertaining us old moms in our kitchen.
Ma slumped her shoulders while expressing her limitations in this snooping matter. I think he would be chuffed beyond all belief if you guys invited him over for dinner. He'd be like, this is a novel experience. I love this. I really think he would enjoy himself. Though, she immediately perked back up.
It's different if he's making a friend his own age. If you don't want to ask or it doesn't come up, of course that's fine. I'm only saying that if you do or it does, then I'd be curious to hear about it.
He might be. I'll never squeal. I will take those secrets to my grave. I accept the mission. I won't let you down.
Roger that.
Love you.
Thank you for indulging us, sweetie. I won't keep you any longer. Go have a wonderful day.
See you later.
Take care.
You waved at them in farewell. Love you, moms. You gathered up your phone, wallet, a water bottle, good, and a few other odds and ends you imagine might come in handy during an unspecified outing. You left the condo, your formerly normal but boring day rocketing off into an unknown direction. Baxter tended to have that kind of effect on things. Once outside, you crossed the street diagonally to reach Baxter's place. You found the doorbell and pressed it down. His doorbell was so much more reasonably placed. A second later, the man you wanted to see opened the door with a grin. From his quick response, you knew he had to have been standing by. You had announced you'd be there and he was ready for it.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for coming.
Hi. You waved with a sheepish expression on your face. At Baxter's obvious pleasure at your attention, you smiled in return. He stepped out of his condo and closed the door behind him to stand by you.
I appreciate you agreeing so last minute. However, if you do have prior arrangements, this can be done another day. Sightseeing is my usual itinerary, after all.
I didn't have any plans. Really, there was nothing to do.
Oh?
In that case, I'm glad today was the afternoon I asked. I've stopped in at least one scenic spot, tried a new restaurant, or browsed an unfamiliar shop nearly every day since I've been here so far. I've always had to go on my own, so this will be a special trip.
You were impressed by his willingness to seek out new things. It was very proactive of him. He continued contently.
I've only had a few short visits to California in my life. Even then, I was underaged and supervised by parents or guardians.
He raised an eyebrow and his voice took on a delighted tone.
We saw each other on one of those rare occasions where I was in state. Dance instructors were controlling the schedule that time.
Is that fine?
This summer is my first chance to truly experience what the area has for myself. It's also not going to last forever, so I'd rather not waste my opportunities.
His bold proclamation reminded you of how fleeting his presence really was in everyone's life. Exactly as he'd suddenly appeared, it wouldn't be too much longer until he vanished back to wherever he'd come from. He was impossible to pin down. Are you trying to be mysterious? Because it's working. Completely unrelated. You know what? I think I would probably be like, by the way, just so you know, it's gonna happen. I have to warn you, my moms might grill you on your life one of these days.
That's fine. I don't mean to be opaque.
Well...
I have nothing to hide.
He shifted from foot to foot as he thought it over.
Actually, perhaps there are one or two things that would be best not to reach your parents' ears.
Your eyes widened as you tried to imagine the sorts of things he might be implying. Skinny dipping, Molly. Skinny dipping. He locked his door smoothly and tucked the key into his pocket.
You're doing me quite the favor by accompanying me.
His shoulders loosened, and he directed a soft glance towards you.
And, if you wouldn't mind, this feels like a good chance for the two of us to get to know each other better.
My pleasure.
Please, query me at your leisure if there is anything you'd ever want to ask. I'm an open book in your hands.
Oh, really? It could have stopped there, and you would have expected it to end on a formal bow. But the exceedingly official-sounding offer was flipped into something coy and full of possibility.
There are many things I would like to know about you.
Okay. Your mom would have been thrilled to hear that. Probably. Probably. Yeah, you know what? I'll match. You can ask me whatever you want to.
Thank you.
That's a gracious offer. I'll take you up on it.
He voiced no questions yet, but you knew with his grin that it'd only be a matter of his patience. Instead of asking him personal information, you needed to use your question asking authority for something else first. Yes, where are we going? Where were you thinking of going sightseeing? Baxter placed a hand on his chin, considering.
Ideally, the first stop would be your choice. Since you're so considerately joining me today, I may as well take advantage of your local expertise. After that, I can take you to a place that, possibly, even you haven't been to yet.
Intriguing.
I have a rental car, so it is no worry if you want to go somewhere that's too far to walk to. My choice will certainly require driving. I'm positive you've stepped on every inch of this town.
What do you think?
Does that sound agreeable?
Letting you pick the first place, and following it up with somewhere you hadn't been to before despite living here for almost your whole life? What did he think you'd missed? Maybe it was the overconfidence of a tourist, or maybe it was something trickier. But he'd caught you off guard again. With Baxter's promise to tell you whatever you wanted to know, you hadn't prepared for him to still be so hard to read. You should have known he wouldn't suddenly get actually straightforward no matter how direct he claimed he would act. Okay. Unfortunately, the spotlight had been put on you, but his idea was fair. Baxter flashed his shiny white teeth. My shiny teeth and me. Yes? What?
Do you have anywhere in mind, then?
You pondered the request. If there was one place someone like Baxter should go see, what would it be? Inspiration struck. There was no place more iconic around. Well, do you want to check out the shopping street? You hoped that he'd like it. You'd have to trust your gut on this one.
The shopping street. I don't know what you mean.
Given it was minutes away on foot, you worried you might have offered old news. But it didn't come up on the map as anything other than a few of the permanent shops. You had to be there to know. It's a row of local shops and stalls by the beach. It's right near our neighborhood.
Really?
His hanging attention encouraged you to continue. It's meant to be fun for visitors, not at all the typical grocery stores or clothing shops or things like that. Everyone should go there at least once while they're here. Baxter made a grand gesture of waving you on to lead out.
Perfect.
That sounds absolutely perfect. Please, show me the way.
You obliged, and the two of you strolled down the inclined street. Neither of you were particularly rushing, and it still took less than 15 minutes to walk down to the spot. You skipped over the cement curb onto a worn gray bricked road and were there. Tantalizing smells and a mix of attention-grabbing music drifted from the open doors and outdoor stalls. The different songs blended into one new tune, a celebration for your senses. Actually, is this the only time we go here in Step 3? I'm trying to remember if we've been here in Step 3 before. 1 and 2, definitely. But I can't remember if we ever went here again. Oh, no, wait, I think we did for the Orca event. I think we set up a stall here. So yes, we have been here for Step 3 before. As normal for tourist season, the path bustled with a crowd of excited visitors. Aesthetically, Baxter stood out from a vast majority of the colorful tourists, but his enthusiasm matched their faces of awe.
I love it.
This is wonderful.
Nice. Confident you had suggested the correct choice, you let out a happy sigh. You continued wandering, but now you let Baxter direct the way. You merely followed along as he explored. He flitted to and from stalls like a monochrome butterfly in a flower garden. Terry had been more correct than she could have known when she made that comparison at the beginning of summer. While you had memories attached to each corner of the street, watching his first experience there was almost like seeing it with fresh eyes yourself. You could easily recall the feelings you had coming as a child, being swept up in the energy and adventure of it all. You scrutinized the available stalls out today and realized Baxter would have a huge gaping hole in the experience. There was no magician performing tricks anywhere. That bit of shopping street wonder would go unknown to Baxter, even though he came all the way there. By chance, Baxter led you into the area where shows happened in the past. Cards and coins that appeared out of nowhere and free balloons were inseparable from this place to you. Watching Baxter out of the corner of your eyes, it struck you that you had never gotten close to a tourist before. Everyone you knew well also was familiar with Sunset Bird, or at least something in the area. But he was another one of the temporary passers-by. If only we came a different day, we could have gotten dolphin balloons.
Huh?
He's like, what? Dolphin balloons?
He repeated the words curiously, trying to put the concept together in his mind. Yeah, in the past there was a magician called the Amazing Alexander who did tricks here. He'd award participants with those balloons as a thank you. Sometimes they were shaped as animals, like the dolphin balloons. It made them extra special. Baxter leaned in closer to catch your words against the buzz of the crowd. His captivation encouraged you to continue speaking. I guess because regular balloons wouldn't be amazing enough. Not for the Amazing Alexander. And he must have had good business, because those probably cost way more than normal balloons. Baxter stared back, starry-eyed at your tale of the performer. You weren't expecting him to be so dazzled by a mention of a random street magician, but he was. I named my balloon Sam. Yeah, that's true. I would still be like freaking out about this at 17, honestly. Like, I remember he pulled a coin out of my ear. That was the best. He pulled a coin out of my ear.
Charming.
Impressive. I suppose that's one way of increasing capital. I didn't know you could mint money from an ear.
You shook your head at that, laughing. It was a good trick.
I'm sure it was. Even if it produced a counterfeited quarter. I hope you didn't try to spend it.
Even without seeing the shows for himself, Baxter was having a good time. That was nice. Coming here was more than just showing a small part of the world you lived in. You had shown him parts of yourself. Now felt appropriate to use your privilege of asking him a question about himself. Ooh boy. Big choice. Oh dang, I go right to the source. Do you have a partner? Okay, let's softball it first. Let's softball it a little bit. So, what's up with the black and white thing?
My dress sense is the most pressing thing you want to know about. I appreciate someone with a good eye.
I'm just curious, because I went through a similar phase myself at like 15. I want to know what your reason is for going monochrome. He looked down at his outfit and shrugged.
I don't think of it as being much of a thing. Black and white happen to be my favorite colors.
Fair. But isn't having it be your entire wardrobe a bit much? And dyeing your hair to match too. Baxter quietly absorbed your words with a wry smile, clearly more amused than embarrassed. For all that he just downplayed it, he totally owned the strange quirk of his character.
All right.
I admit it. One could say I'm rather dedicated to the aesthetic as a whole. I came to it gradually, though I've had some level of affection for black and white ever since I was a small child. Anyone who knew me back then could have told you as much. I was very forthright and outspoken about my preferences, as children can often be. But it wasn't until a few years ago that I made the conscious decision to align my fashion choices with that underlying attachment. It was around then that I came to understand how clothing could be an expression of your personality, a way of showing yourself to the world. I wanted to make a statement, you could say. So I started experimenting with more grayscale looks, and began selectively tailoring my wardrobe around the limited palette. To start with, like most people, I had associated black and white with more formal tastes and styles. Tuxedos, dinner suits, tailcoats, and the like. But as I looked further beyond my own social group, I found a diverse range of alternative subcultures which drew upon the monochrome theme. There was a lot of appeal for me there as well. I ended up adapting many of them into my own personal sense of taste.
So,
The rest, as they say, is history.
Cool. Alright. Very neat. For me, I got into charcoal sketching at around 15. So I started becoming fascinated with the idea of black and white and just very, like, no colors whatsoever. I dressed very colorfully up until I started doing charcoal drawing. And I was like, man, I kind of want to get into just black and white for my own wardrobe. So I started doing that. And I did a similar thing to like Baxter's like half black, half white shirt, but I would have like one black shoe and one white shoe, or one black sock and one white sock, or something like that. One black earring, one white earring, bracelets. I would try to have it like evenly split across my body. So Baxter's always fascinated me since I met him, because I'm like, I went for like a similar aesthetic at one point in my life. So it's nice to get his backstory on that. That was very cool. That actually made a lot of sense now that it was all laid out in front of you. It was like that one small choice early on had snowballed, gathering momentum as time went on, and now it formed a core part of who he was. But if that were the case, then the question remained. So what made you like black and white in the first place? As a kid, I mean.
Oh, that.
He leaned in closer and playfully threaded his fingers together under his chin.
Can you guess?
What? It wasn't like him to beat about the bush. The fact that he was choosing to toy with you a little about this was not what you'd prepared for. Standard formal colors, zebras, black and white movies. You're too much of a grown-up for colorful things. Can I have a hint? As a kid. I don't think it's that you're too much of a grown-up for colorful things. I don't think he hates colors. He's just into black and white. Alright. No idea. Can I have a hint?
I think that's a fair enough request.
See?
I'll try and make it easier for you. The crux of the matter is this. Why do I, Baxter Ward, like the colors black and white so much?
His voice took on a strange quality, placing a lot of emphasis on certain words. He was obviously trying to guide your thought process here, but you couldn't quite work it out. Tell me! Alright, come on, Molly, what do you got? Wait a minute. Black and white. Oh my god, I get it. BW? It's just because of your initials? Alright, sure. That's so silly. Baxter, Ward, black and white. No way. No way! It's because of your initials! He grinned from ear to ear. The punchline finally revealed a face of sheer delight. Why not blue and white then? I mean, okay, black, I will admit, black and white is a much better color combination, but still.
You got it. Brilliant, isn't it? And I have to give you credit. You managed to see the picture without every piece of the puzzle. The truth is, my full name is Baxter Alexander Ward. 3 out of 3.
Okay. Baxter Alexander Ward. Okay. He rested his chin in his hands and beamed at you, the very picture of smugness. You'd hardly seen him this contented in all the time you'd known him. I'm so glad I asked this question. Oh my goodness. That's adorable. I can't believe that's the reason. Baxter just giggled boyishly at your response and swept his fingers idly through his bangs.
I confess, as a child, I came to believe that black and white had to be a part of my identity, as soon as I realized how well it coincided with my own name. It felt almost like magic in a way. Names carry power and importance. Kids love those kinds of coincidences. It's part of the mystery of youth.
Magic, huh? You were reminded of something that happened earlier. Is that why you reacted when I mentioned the amazing Alexander? Because it's your middle name?
You're good.
Ah, well spotted. That's correct again. You could say I wish to be an amazing Alexander in my own right. I've always been fond of my full name.
Yeah, it's a very nice name.
Thank you. I'm delighted we are in agreement. At any rate, I'm sure you can understand at last why I'm so attached to it. And to my favorite colors.
You certainly did. Who knew that such a simple question would lead to such a strange and unexpected answer? In the past few minutes, you'd ended up learning much more than you bargained for about the hidden depths of Baxter Alexander Ward. And then you were struck by the most obvious idea in the world. You were on Shopping Street, window shopping with a tourist. Baxter needed to get a souvenir for his days in Sunset Bird. Oh, this is gonna hurt my heart later, isn't it? I feel like he doesn't... I was gonna say, I feel like he doesn't collect souvenirs of places and people, though. They're just like memories and experiences, and he's ever going forward. I feel like if I buy him something, he's gonna leave, and he's gonna like leave the thing that I gave him behind, and I'm just gonna like bawl over it. Whether I buy it or he gets it, it's gonna be like something he leaves behind. He's not gonna take with him. That, or I meet him again in step 4 and he still has it, and it's like, you didn't forget, and I'm gonna cry then. Either way, I'm crying, no matter what option I pick with this thing. But you know what? He invited me out as a guest today. I would probably look around to get him something to thank him for the day. So, I guess I'll just prepare my tissues for the inevitable heartbreak at some point. You peruse the displays with purpose rather than passively observing them. What would be a fitting memento of your town? And what would Baxter Alexander Ward, actually like? You considered those criteria carefully and decided to get him a postcard, shot glass, mug, t-shirt, shell picture frame, mini carved driftwood statue, or a locally made necklace. Out of all these things, I'm drawn towards the statue or the necklace. Because like Baxter strikes me as somebody who would wear a necklace. I'm gonna get him a necklace. I feel it. It feels right to me. The jewelry was a bright silver chain with black stones strung across it. It had a lobster claw clasp that opened smoothly. That sounds perfect. It would work with his usual style, he determined. He could wear a little piece of this town as part of his day-to-day life. It was satisfying finding something that worked so well. You went to purchase it discreetly. When you'd returned to Baxter's side, his excitable expression curved into something more typical for him.
What did you find?
You ducked your head and its bag crinkled in your hands. It's for you. A gift. You offered him the plastic pouch containing the recently bought necklace. He graciously accepted it.
Thank you.
Molly, you're too kind.
Before he opened it to examine what it was, he paused.
I'm going to wait.
Huh?
I don't want to experience everything good right now, then there'll be nothing left. I can have this joy later. Though, don't worry, I'll be sure to open this while you're watching. Perhaps at the end of this outing.
Oh. Alright, it's your gift. Open it whenever you'd like.
Thank you once again.
You walked away from the shop side by side with a successful purchase swinging between you. When Baxter was gone, he'd only have to look at the necklace to recall his days there. And you. Your gaze wandered back to the man beside you who you still hardly knew. The one you had so little time to know. Alright. I thought for sure he'd come back at me with a question of his own, but not yet. So, where do I want to go? Do I want to... What's like another good softball question? College? College is safe. So I was like, where are you from? I am curious. What are you studying in college?
I'm studying for a business administration and management degree. The expectation is that I will manage and or administrate at some company in the future.
Or be a wedding planner? He tilted his head, aware of the silly way he'd put it.
Nothing too specific, I'm afraid.
Wow, I would never have guessed. Studies going well?
I'd say so, yes. Of course, I've only completed a few semesters worth, so it's early days yet. Counting my eggs before they've hatched would be a bad habit for an aspiring administrator to develop.
Fair.
It might not surprise you to know that I can be a touch particular. I know the importance of coherence, with individuals acting in a well-coordinated fashion. And I like things to function well, for systems to operate smoothly.
Honestly.
I confess, you could call me controlling at times. Not with people, but with processes. Especially when it comes to enacting plans. I'd much rather act under my own steam than follow someone else's lead. I'm only flexible with the personal, not the business aspects of life.
He spread his palms matter-of-factly.
But that's enough about my aspirations. You know my story, so what about you, Molly? I'm curious to know what the world has in store for you further down the line.
Well, I actually just graduated high school.
Really?
My congratulations. It's an achievement to be proud of. If it's not too much to ask, where do you see yourself next? College? Straight into a career, perhaps?
I told him he could ask. And I think I've decided to be open about it with basically everybody, so yeah. I don't mind. You'd had no problems discussing your plans with others in the past. There wasn't a reason that Baxter should be any different. At your reply, Baxter moved in slightly, his eyes sparkling. Since you'd responded positively, he had no qualms about letting his curiosity show. My story is a little different from yours. I was thinking about going straight into working part-time. Baxter attentively waited for you to finish and then nodded encouragingly.
I think it's wonderful that you have something you're aspiring to already. I wish you the best of luck. It's an exciting thing, taking the first step on your journey.
You know.
You truly never know just where you'll end up. Take me, for instance. I had never lived outside of my hometown until I left for college. And look at me now.
That's great. That's going to be a great segue into me asking where you're from.
All of a sudden, I am in California, of all places, cavorting about with a charming new friend.
His brown eyes met yours, briefly.
Isn't that delightful? Life is nothing if not full of unexpected developments. I'd like to think we're doing what we can to make the most of that. I didn't have to be here, and you could have pretended no one new had appeared in your small town and gone on as usual.
You sighed over thoughts of the future. What do I want to say here? Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what comes next.
Glad to hear it.
I feel the same about finding out where things go from here and now. Besides, we've only been talking about work and school and such. There's much more to life than that. The world would be altogether too dull otherwise.
True.
You might not remember me mentioning it when we first met, but my most fulfilling hobby is ballroom dancing. It's a true passion of mine.
You seem to remember him saying something along those lines.
It's important to have genuine hobbies, don't you think?
Yeah. I also have pastimes that I love too. Speaking of hobbies, at 17, I did like to read. I like to read. Baxter inclined his head, attentive to your
I
words.
see.
That's interesting. I had no idea. We actually have that in common. Fate smiles on us once again. We should talk more about it sometime, if you'd like.
That'd be nice. It's something I really enjoy. It doesn't have to make me money.
I feel the same way about ballroom dancing. It's something that has intrinsic value to me beyond the potential to earn a living from it. Although, to be clear, it isn't entirely devoid of, shall we say, remunerative benefits.
His tone took on a sly edge, and his eyes brightened with amusement.
For those with a certain level of skill, there's some money to be had in the competitive scene. Prize winnings and such.
Huh. You guess it made sense, especially for someone with Baxter's level of panache. Baxter laughed heartily, his face apologetic.
I apologize.
I'm sorry to have deceived you, but I wasn't lying when I described it as a true passion of mine. Any additional compensation is nothing more than a fringe benefit.
That's okay. I understand.
Excellent. Thank you for indulging me on the topic. I had fun.
From there, you and Baxter continued poking around until he'd browsed every shop on the path. He even doubled back around, leading you all the way across again for a second glance. Despite the short length, it was easy to miss something even after a dozen passes through because the area was so packed. But Baxter was satisfied with going through twice. He came to a halt at the end of the path, his attention leaving the shops and landing on you.
Thank you once more for showing me this place, and for the gift.
He held up the bag with his souvenir safely hidden inside.
Bravo!
This truly has been a fantastic stop on my California sightseeing extravaganza.
He inclined his head gracefully. The shopping street was officially a hit. Hooray! Thumbs up!
Now,
I suppose I need to hold up my side of the bargain. I said I'd show you somewhere new, didn't I? Are you still interested in joining me in checking off an outing on my own goal list?
You nodded, wondering just how wild your afternoon was about to become. Yeah, where are you taking me?
Fantastic. In that case, we'll need to return to the neighborhood.
He sauntered off in the correct direction before clarifying what his plan was, leaving you to trail behind him. With your brain abuzz over all the places he could possibly be taking you, you mentally said goodbye to your old friend, the shopping street. Alright, and now we're in the car. You made it back to Baxter's rented condo and climbed into his also rented car. He brought up directions on his phone, though was careful not to let you catch a glimpse of the destination. He didn't even give you a hint. Then Baxter slipped his phone into the car handle slot for future reference and began to drive. You felt a bit nervous going for a ride with Baxter alone, especially to an unknown destination. While he was in a good mood, his increasing coyness told you he knew exactly what he was doing. That wasn't helping your twisting stomach. After how many questions of yours he'd been answering, it was funny to have him suddenly act as if he'd never heard of the concept of sharing information with another person. You didn't push it. Inevitably, the veil of secrets would be removed. You only had to be patient. However, when he finally turned into a parking lot, you admitted it was not what you had been expecting, even if you didn't know what to expect. It was still something you would not have guessed in a million years. On the top of the spacious building was a human-sized white pin. The place he'd wanted to sightsee at was a bowling alley. Okay. I love bowling. Baxter led you to the entryway on air-light feet. Even from there, you could hear the clattering of normal-sized pins getting knocked down, cutting into the disco tunes playing in the background. Cool. Very, very cool. The front desk advertised rates for paying per game versus per hour. Along the wall, a tower of shelves held dozens of shoes in all sorts of sizes, and past that were the shining alleys. I can smell this picture.
alright.
Here we are.
He was content, as if bowling was all his soul needed to find peace. I feel that, man. You were at a loss. Oh gosh, I wouldn't want to be a dick and be like, I've been to a bowling alley before. All of these feel kind of rude, honestly. Except for this one. Maybe I'll just go with this one. I'm sorry. This isn't new. I've been bowling before.
Oh?
Fair. But have you been to this particular bowling alley? I know it's quite new.
What? You glance at sparkling floors, walls, balls, and even couches. It certainly was recently made. Not a thing had any sign of wear and tear, and none of it was familiar. No, I haven't been. Baxter smirked victorious. Okay, technically you win. You had to give it to him. Baxter won, though on a technicality. This was in fact somewhere you'd never seen before.
Personally, I've never been bowling in my life.
Really?
I wanted to try it for longer than I can remember, and well, what better opportunity than when I'm on vacation? Wouldn't it be so much stranger to try it whilst I live my regular life? The life that I must remind you never had bowling in it before. It would be entirely unexplainable. Here I'm a tourist, doing new things as part of my job description.
Maybe I should pretend to be a tourist too. They can do whatever they want. No one likes the tourists who act as if real life doesn't matter on vacations. I mean, I won't argue with that logic. It was too entertaining an argument, and there was nothing wrong with him wanting to have his fun now. Hanging out with Baxter, seeing firsthand how he was living, you were compelled to ask yourself, had you really done everything you wanted to? You were reminded of the fact that your time in Sunset Bird had its own limits, and you could very well be reaching the end of that line soon. This would be the last summer you had before becoming an adult, before taking your first step into everything that lay beyond. Sometimes, lying awake in bed at night, you would feel the tension like a bubble in your chest. The worry, the excitement, the anticipation of what the future might hold. Before that, how could you make the most of what remained? You weren't sure how to answer those questions. But in the current occasion, at least, you didn't have the chance to ponder them further. I like that taking us bowling set me into like an existential crisis. That sounds accurate. Baxter chimed in again. Your train of thought evaporated.
Now then, should we get in line? They seem to be popular today. Or perhaps this is considered a slow day. I have no basis of comparison. But we might be waiting for Elaine.
It's alright. The two of you joined the queue at the counter. Though the bowling alleys were indeed full, you got your booking in and were handed rental shoes for when an opening came. Baxter flashed you a charming smile and insisted on paying.
Of course.
Since you were so generous as to gift me a keepsake.
Fine, I paid at my spot, I guess you can at yours.
Exactly.
Well, thank you. You laced up your shoes for a sec, and that was it in terms of finishing preparation. There was time aplenty to kill before your round would begin. Well, since you were here... Yeah, I mean, that segue from before. Hey, where are you from? Baxter leaned into the couch, the very picture of nonchalance, and his gaze shifted off into the middle distance.
Well,
In the most immediate sense, I suppose you could say I came here from Virginia. That's where my college is located, after all. But of course, I know that it's not entirely what she meant. I'm merely teasing. While I might study in Virginia, I'm actually from the proverbial Oregon Trail, born and bred. That's the state where my home is, if you can believe it.
Okay. Oh, Oregon. That's not far away at all. Virginia, though, not so much. Gosh, I don't know about that one. I'm curious, but I feel like if I'd spent more time with Baxter up to this point, I might have, like, asked him some more personal questions like that. But because this is literally our first outing, I'm like, what's your hometown like? I don't know if I got around to asking where in Oregon you're from specifically.
Right. I suppose I hadn't named the place yet. It's a little town called Golden Grove. You likely wouldn't have heard of it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, everybody, but I think that's the town that Our Life 2 takes place in, right? That name sounds really familiar. Because I'm pretty sure I heard that Baxter is in the next game as a kid, so if it takes place in his hometown, that would be dope. Because I'm like, man, that name sounds really familiar. Sure enough, you couldn't say you knew anything about the place. The name kind of rang a bell, though. Yup. It sounds like it might have been a pretty place to grow up. At least if the name is true. Baxter smiled with all his teeth. Okay.
Of course.
There's only one thing that springs to mind, isn't there? It's built on the slope of a mountain and surrounded on all sides by woodland. In the fall, the whole area shines with a golden and orange patina of leaves. You almost forget any other colors exist. No wonder they called it something so literal. It does make the place sound grander than it is, though. In truth, it's a small town, though not quite as tiny as Sunset Bird. You can easily stroll the length of this area. In Golden Grove, you'd at least want a bike or similar to make the trip, though some locals do take the walk. It's a quiet, sleepy corner of Oregon where hardly anyone comes or goes. You either move to the area to settle down, or you've lived there all your life to begin with. My ancestors fell into the former category. Myself, the latter.
You've left now, though.
I have indeed. I guess I bucked the trend in more ways than one.
That certainly made sense. Ever since you'd first met Baxter, he'd seemed like the kind of guy to always be making waves of some kind or another. Something about the way he said that made you think he meant something else by it, though. Yeah, bucking the trend. You had to have turned a few heads. You must have stood out. Did you feel out of place there? Baxter shrugged casually.
I think I did sometimes, but that's not quite what I meant.
He hummed thoughtfully and tapped his chin with a forefinger, trying to find precisely the right words. After a moment's pause, he continued.
You have to understand that this is a small rural town. A fair number of the residents are working class. There are some more affluent areas, but...
To be honest,
I suppose you could say that my family has a reputation in those parts as the local people of means. Or perhaps, to put it in more vulgar terms...
You're... rich? He snapped his fingers.
Precisely. And for better or worse, everyone knows it. If you were to go there and pass my name around, anyone would know who you were talking about.
I see. So it's more like... everyone kind of expects a certain something from you because of your family name, and you're like... I get it. Not wanting to have those expectations and just preconceptions about you. Makes sense to me. He gave you a meaningful look as he said this.
Please don't actually do that. It might embarrass even me.
You got the sneaking suspicion that it wasn't really his own fluster he was concerned about. He waved a hand with great indifference, as if to lazily swat his own words out of the air. You figured that this was all he felt like saying on the subject. And that's fair. This is our first outing. You don't have to tell me all of your family secrets. If I'm ever in town, I promise I won't throw your acclaimed name around.
very well.
Thank you. You needn't go out of your way on my account. Although if you are ever in the area...
His smile took on an air of boyish amusement.
I'm not planning on being in Golden Grove anytime soon. But all the same, I get the feeling it might not be long before I meet you there, one way or another. Who can say?
With that, his voice trailed off and his gaze drifted to the middle distance in contemplation. Okay, and I can actually ask more. Okay, so after hearing all that, I think he does miss it though. complicated feeling, so I want to do that. I feel like how do you like it back in Virginia should be kind of the last, like near the last thing. Let's do this one. You grew up pretty close by then. We're practically neighbors.
Oh.
That's true, isn't it? While I might not be as close a neighbor as your friend Cove, when it comes to states, I grew up right next door. Lucky for me, then.
The thought of this seemed to please him greatly. You got the impression that Baxter had a soft spot for these kinds of coincidences. You found this fact about him rather charming.
Speaking of which, it's actually a little funny. The land my family home was built on. I suppose you could call it somewhat remote. It's a fair-sized estate, situated a little ways off from the rest of the town. So until I moved into college dorms, I'd go as far as to say that I'd never had neighbors before.
His demeanor became more thoughtful at this. As for you, the admission came as something of a surprise. In the time you'd known Baxter, which was admittedly not very long, this was the closest time he'd come to being melancholy. And even then, it was the faintest of glimpses. You blinked and it was gone. A slate, wiped clean. Another thought caught his fancy, and soon the characteristic grin was back on his face.
Not bad.
In any case, now we are neighbors in the truest sense of the word. At least until my time in Sunset Bird reaches its end.
It was a nice thought, in spite of the certain knowledge that it would all soon be over. The two of you shared a look which could best be described as neighborly. Sure, I believe you. Is it hard living away from where you grew up? Do you miss it? Baxter nodded, not in agreement, but as if he'd been anticipating your question. He answered almost before you finished speaking.
No.
Yeah, I figured. It was said so instantaneously and with such a genuine smile that you were rather taken aback. You weren't expecting such a candid answer as that. It's like he didn't even have to think about it. Seeing your momentary look of surprise, Baxter's expression softened to something more demure. Maybe he'd had this reaction before, maybe many times. I mean, you kind of expect someone to be like, oh yeah, of course I miss it, you know? But I expect him to say no, even if he may miss like parts of it. He also probably doesn't miss parts of it. It's complicated.
It's not so bad as it sounds. At a minimum, I can honestly say that I wish that I missed it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You guessed you could understand that?
I don't know how you feel about your hometown particularly, but you should at least be able to appreciate that I spent all of my youth there. I'm not so jaded as to totally discount the place, far from it. But anything I liked about my home wasn't exactly exclusive to that locale. The US is a big country, and there are plenty of beautiful things to see wherever you go. I've experienced enough to know that much, at least.
His voice took on a tone of polite finality. Not harsh, simply matter of fact.
So no, I don't miss it. And I won't be going back. If my parents wish to see me, they'll have to be the ones visiting where I am.
Okay. Interesting. That goes beyond not missing where you're from, though. That's like, you're avoiding the place. You're avoiding something about it, and you're just like, I don't want to reconnect old connections. I'm a leaf in the wind, okay? I'm there for a season, then I'm gone like a butterfly. Oh boy, this guy. Doesn't like roots anywhere. He snorted gently to himself. The idea amused him greatly. You got the feeling that he was enjoying a private joke at his family's expense. That could be one of the things you'd ask about later if he was willing to divulge. His feelings surprised you, but you respected them. His life was his own to live. And yet, thinking about your own life experiences compared with his made you feel a little sad. You couldn't imagine turning your back on Sunset Bird so easily. Not after all you'd been through here. Alright, and to end it on like a little more of a positive note, how do you like it back in Virginia?
I'd say I enjoy being there for the most part. As you can probably imagine, it's quite different from here or back home in Oregon, especially the humidity. Everything seems smaller there too. In California, it's like the sky goes on forever, and the mountains and the horizon are impossibly far away. Oregon as well. There's a scale there to the scenery that just doesn't compare. Whereas in Virginia, the hills are just that, hills, rather than mountains. Quaint little things, really, and they sort of gently enfold everything.
His gaze grew distant again as his mind conjured up memories of the landscape, like he was getting lost among all those quaint little hills.
Another good thing about it is the trees. Virginia has plenty of forest cover, like Oregon, so at least in that sense I'm among the familiar.
That tracks. I think I read somewhere that something like 2/3 of Virginia consists of forests, right?
2/3? I can readily believe it. You're well informed, Molly.
His voice took on a hushed, affectionate quality. Don't look at me like that. I'm weak to that look, don't do that.
I must confess, I have a soft spot for trees. There are these beautiful eastern white pines planted all over the college dorms. Magnificent all year round. When summer comes to a close, the needles get everywhere. They fall so thick in places that the ground around is covered in what looks like one big tan shag carpet. If you were to walk underneath any of the branches, you'd be picking needles out of your hair until Christmas.
You smiled at the mental image. Oh, I guess the colors must stand out against your black and white style.
That's right. The natural tones do ruin the effect of it. Although, of course, with eyes like mine, I'm used to being forced to compromise somewhat.
Shoot, you'd somehow completely forgotten about that. Oh gosh, I mean... He laughed gently and gave you a look of reassurance.
No offense taken. You hit upon one of the fundamental contradictions of my life, after all.
You are incredible.
It's remarkable. You know me so well already.
Something about the way he said that made your stomach go a little funny. Girl! Baxter exhaled slowly, almost dreamily.
Ah. That's another good thing Virginia and Oregon have in common. With all the trees around and the variable climate, you truly get the experience of the seasons changing. Summer to fall is especially beautiful. Colors like you would not believe.
He was about to get lost in thought again, but then caught himself.
So,
To finally answer your question, yes, I'd say that I like it in Virginia a fair amount. The humidity is still a bit of an, sticking point.
Ha ha ha. He narrowed his eyes a fraction as the pun rolled off his tongue without his fully intending it.
But at the very least, that's only an issue during the summer months. And happily for me, I've spent my summer elsewhere this year.
You smiled a private smile to yourself. Yes, happily for Baxter, indeed. Having asked all the questions about Baxter's home you could think of, a final thought occurred to you. I had you pegged as a city boy. Would you call yourself a woodsy kind of person? Definitely not a sun, sea, and sand guy. I wouldn't say so. We've got a sun, sea, and sand girl here with a woodsy boy. But yeah, I would guess fall is your favorite season? He gave a wistful smile, which seemed to ache with memories of autumn reds and golds.
Indeed it is.
As the day went on, in the idle pauses and quiet minutes after this conversation, you'd catch yourself pondering the strange man you were coming to know. More and more, you felt as though Sunset Bird formed a vital part of your emotional core. Happiness to you was the sound of waves on the shore, the feeling of warm sand between your toes. There was something so sentimental about the bright summer days that seemed to stretch on to eternity, only to draw to a close in the end. Maybe you'd forever be seeing the world through sea glass. That's beautiful. But Baxter was another person entirely. For him, perhaps the world was monochrome, or maybe it was golden, but with the color of leaves instead of sand. Talking with him made it impossible to ignore just how different your lives had been up until now. How separate your worlds were. All up until that moment when he showed up on your street. Now your lives were intertwined, however briefly. The forest and the sea foam commingling. Oh my. Though you knew his love was in the trees and the fall air, you couldn't help but feel happy that he'd wandered his way down to the shore. To you. The conversation successfully filled the waiting period, and an attendant suddenly called you over. A lane was free.
Excellent, thank you.
Together you headed over to the rack of house balls where Baxter began to size them up.
So, they come in different weights. Interesting.
He touched a forefinger to his chin, pondering the choice carefully. You picked... a heavier ball, no sweat. A medium ball, moderation was key. A lighter ball, better safe than sorry. I like a little bit of weight, so medium ball would be good for me. Not too heavy, not too light. You picked out one of the mid-weight balls that was just right. It was a dark ebony black. Seeing your choice, Baxter nodded approvingly. Molly's like, everything's black and white now.
Very well.
That is a solid option. The best of both worlds, right? Easy to hold, yet with sufficient weight to give it some momentum. I think I will follow your lead.
Baxter picked out an identical ball, flashing you a wry smile.
It's even the right color. Now, care to take the first shot?
Sure, I can go first.
Marvelous. I'm looking forward to this. Best of luck, Molly.
Mr. Monochrome took a seat on the striking red couch to watch. Him and that couch together almost look like some kind of modern art display. Yeah? But you weren't at a gallery, you were at a bowling alley, and he was waiting for you. You eyed the pins at the far end of the lane, gauging the distance. A breath in, a breath out. You raised the ball behind you, took a few steps forwards, then swung. Alright. I'm gonna do a random number generator for this one, because I don't go bowling all that often, and it's been many years at this point. At 17, I probably went like twice a year-ish at that point, for like parties and stuff, but I wasn't terrible, but I mean, you do sometimes just get shots that go straight into the gutter. It happens. Alright, come on, load on up for me. Boop. And? Okay, I got a fair number of pins. This game wasn't so hard for you, and past experience definitely helped. Baxter gave a round of applause.
Exciting.
An excellent way to begin.
Since it wasn't a strike, you had one more attempt this frame. You waited for your ball to be returned, then lined up another shot. This time the ball zipped down the lane and tipped over some more of the pins, but not quite enough to get the spare. Dang, that was too bad. The triangular arrangement was reset and the scoreboard flashed up with Baxter's name. You took a seat on the faux leather just as Baxter limbered up for his first shot of the game.
All right.
Let's see how this goes, shall we?
He turned the ball over in his hands a few times as though it were an alien object. You eventually figured out he was searching for the holes to put his fingers through. It was more than obvious that he'd never so much as touched a bowling ball before. After more fumbling, he managed to work out the grip.
Wish me luck.
Not one for hesitation, Baxter took a couple large strides and sent the ball rolling. It hurtled down the lane straight on. At first,
Oh dear.
you watched as the ball curved massively to one side. It reached the end of the lane barely. It clipped the very back corner pin, which fell over right as the ball dropped into the gutter. 1 point for Baxter. He turned to you and grimaced playfully.
Can you tell this is new to me?
It's okay.
Thank you.
At least you didn't throw it up into the air like I've seen some people do when they first play bowling. It just like gets thrown into the air before it lands with a big thud in the middle of the lane. So you didn't do that.
Well, here's hoping I can do a touch better than that.
Baxter retrieved his ball and rolled his shoulders, taking form in front of the lane. His brow was furrowed in concentration. He wasn't as hasty as before. He took his time to line up the next shot. 1 step, 2 steps, a 3rd step, and release. It shot off like a cannonball, barreling ahead. It still curved slightly at the last moment to knock one of the center right pins head on. 5 more points. Baxter nodded to himself, satisfied at the improvement.
Not bad.
60% success is plenty for a first attempt. It's all part of the learning process. I must say, I'm enjoying myself so far. Your turn, Molly.
As the game proceeded, you and Baxter settled into a rhythm. You exchanged friendly chatter between frames with the odd quip or moment of celebration thrown in. It was a comfortable way to pass the afternoon. In an idle moment, you found yourself wondering more about Baxter again. The two of you would be there for a while yet, and if you felt inclined, it wouldn't be too hard to strike up a more in-depth conversation. Wait, that was a pun. Was it? Oh, strike up, I see. I was wondering, what's your family like? Baxter straightened up properly. He guessed you would ask about this sooner or later.
Honestly.
It's not the most exciting story, all told. My immediate family consists of my mother and father and myself. For better or worse, I am an only child. That tends not to surprise people.
His voice took on a slight lilting quality, as if he was reciting something he'd practiced many times over.
In many ways, my parents are the prototypical example of success. They're affluent, sophisticated, and have a wide-reaching and influential social circle. As families go, I suppose I'd have to say that we are a happy set.
As sometimes happened with Baxter, you weren't convinced he was giving you the whole picture. Yeah. You couldn't help but give him a curious look. What about not in general? His eyes narrowed knowingly, and his mouth pressed into a thin smirk.
I can see you're not content. I love my parents, but that's not to say that there aren't complaints to be had. It's a mutual feeling. They understand care through the lens of control and protection. That's been their way ever since I was young. In that sense, they treat me no different from a child. But, of course, they are quiet, educated, esteemed, and a tad old. As is their company most days. That's not the environment to act as a kid. That meant I've always been expected to behave with the maturity of someone their own age, or perhaps even older somehow. A bit of a paradox, isn't it? Do everything as an adult would while getting the respect an infant does.
Yeah.
As for me, I think of myself as much more of a free spirit at heart. I'm my own person, and I'd like to enjoy life in whatever way I see fit.
Well,
You could say I'm a bit of a rebel.
He said it almost furtively, like he divulged some important personal secret. Oh, so you're a bad boy? Ooh. He grinned, leaned closer, and met your gaze with a meaningful look. Dang! Abort! Abort! I wasn't ready! I mean, I said what I said, but still. There was a heat to it that spread all the way to the pit of your stomach.
absolutely.
The very worst. You're courting danger simply by being near me.
His voice dropped a fraction lower.
That makes you something of a rebel too.
A heartbeat. A pause. Then he broke eye contact and moved away. Damn you. He got me. He got me. When his gaze returned to you, his usual affable smile returned with it. Speaking of your parents, where are they now? You didn't mention them visiting Sunset Bird.
They're at home, most likely. I don't know for sure.
Huh. That was odd to you. Why did Baxter come here during his semester off instead of going back to his family home? I mean, we kind of talked about that already.
I didn't want to stay with them or go back home to Oregon at all, in fact. More rebellious behavior on my part, you see.
His tone was a strange mixture of proud and diffident, like he knew how frivolous it sounded but had decided to own it anyway.
Now.
Mother and father agreed to me vacationing on my own, but under the condition that they would have the choice of where I stayed. California being fairly close by, and Sunset Bird being so quaint, not to mention our prior excursions to the area, they concluded that this was the easiest way to keep me out of trouble. They had it all planned out. A safe summer holiday for their only child.
You couldn't help but be surprised at that. He'd said a similar thing when you two first met, actually. That his parents had sent him here to keep it from being exciting. Sure, Sunset Bird was small and sleepy for the most part, but it was still the Californian coast, and Prison Vista City was right there. What part of that was unexciting? Especially since he had his own rental car. What do you normally do if a summer in SoCal is unexciting? As you posed this question to him, Baxter's casual demeanor underwent a change. His customary relaxed smile took on a wickedly sharp edge, and his eyes flashed with a devilish mischief. The change was so surprising that you couldn't help but imagine what his prim and proper parents would think if they were here to see it. He shifted closer, conspiratorially, and spoke in a hushed voice.
So?
Do you know what the legal age requirement is for renting a car in the state of California?
21? 20? That's how old you are, right?
You're right on the first count. It's 21.
He said it totally casually, almost without inflection.
I, however, am 19.
You bad boy! You bad boy. Took a moment for his words to register. Wait. Baxter was 19, and the legal age for renting a car was... Oh. You were rendered momentarily speechless. All this time, and you had no idea. Baxter carried on speaking, not noticing or politely ignoring the implosion your thought process was undergoing.
The truth of the matter is that my parents, being uncreative people, had full confidence that I wouldn't be able to rent a car. That's why Sunset Bird was chosen as my destination.
Oh gosh, I am in so much trouble with you.
It's doable.
Baxter totally would be the guy I fell for if I was living in Sunset Bird. Big trouble.
But I don't have the same issue. There are ways around the age limitation, as you might have gathered. Since I'm over 18 and have control over my own bank accounts, I honestly don't know why they bothered trying at this point.
You laugh nervously to yourself. Now that you knew about the legality of the situation, you couldn't help but wonder if riding around with Baxter made you an accomplice. I'll be his Bonnie, it's fine. I'd be morbidly curious, man, because I was a bit of a rebel at 17 too, so... You know, just out of curiosity's sake, not saying I would do anything like that, but how did you manage it?
It wasn't all that difficult, honestly. I didn't have to do anything awful, don't worry. I have a large number of social connections myself. Members of the dance circuit, acquaintances from the country club, fellow students from college, miscellaneous family friends. The list goes on. The point is, I'm fortunate enough to have a connection in the area who had an extra car, which was mine to use provided I covered the costs. Plus a little extra, of course.
The throwaway nature of this last part gave you pause. Baxter's idea of a little would probably put Cliff Holden's $20 to shame. Okay. That's good to know, I guess.
Splendid. Glad that's squared away.
He gave you a saccharine smile, all honey. And that, for now, was that. In what felt like no time at all, you arrived at the final frame of the match. You glanced up at the scoreboard. The points had been neck and neck all game, and even in that final moment it could still go either way. You went first and would end first and lucked into a spare on the last frame. Nice! You got an extra turn for that. With that, it was officially your final chance to take the lead. A strike here would put you out of Baxter's reach. You remained calm and shot your shot. The ball made smashing contact with the set. They toppled like dominoes being hit by a bat. The corner pin wobbled, holding out on a total collapse. And ultimately, it fell! You had a strike! Your victory was all but secured. Though the odds were against him, Baxter gave it his best attempt. He got his own bonus round that ended in yet another spare. He hummed in satisfaction, defeated but proud of his own performance. You should! Your very first time going? Dang, dude. Then Baxter came over and offered you his hand to shake, the very model of sporting behavior. Yeah, I'd shake your hand, man. Baxter grasped your hand firmly and the two of you shook. He grinned.
Thanks.
Thank you for the game, Molly. I had a lot of fun. I tried my best, but you got the better of me in the end. Congratulations.
I am the champion! It's me! You did great for your first try.
That's sweet.
You're too kind.
It really seemed as though he was happy to have played it all, never mind that he didn't win. The joy of a new experience was what mattered to Baxter in the end. The game reaching its conclusion, you wandered over to the main counter to return your rental shoes. Your sightseeing bowling adventure was finished.